Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. Check us out at deltacx.com and welcome to our once monthly early office hours Ask Me Anything. On the third Tuesday of every month, I do an additional office hours for the people in time zones east of me. This is 10 a.m. Italy time where I am and much later wherever you are. I do this every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. That is every Tuesday. But for this Tuesday, we also do the additional early one in case people east of me have questions. You can ask your question through the YouTube chat, through the LinkedIn chat, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at deltacx.link/ask. If you want your question answered in this session, you would mark it for early, but be careful if today is done and you mark it for early. I'm answering this in a month. It looks like my lights aren't bright enough and I've been getting some sun, so I probably look a little speckly, but what can I say? I don't put on mountains of makeup to do these shows. This is how I look. This is a little bit more honest about how I look, everybody. So if there's any questions that I can answer, I will happily take them during this hour, or if we don't get any questions, I'll end before an hour. But normally all questions are welcome. I don't think we've rejected a question yet. So I'm just going to start checking for the things that come in through email. And good morning, Abby. Good afternoon, Abby. Good morning for me. I'm still having my breakfast shake. Not sponsored by Breakfast Shakes. You didn't see that. We don't have any questions ahead of time. Remember, you can ask your question ahead of time. deltacx.link/ask, but this is office hours, so I usually hang around until we get some questions. And if we don't get too many questions, I'll wrap it up. So let's put 5 minutes on the timer and see if anybody has questions. And if not, we'll just wrap it up for today. So let's put 5 minutes on the timer and see if anybody has questions. Just so I'm not sitting here for an hour going, anyone having questions? Yeah, you're having lunch. I would expect you to be having lunch. It's got to be, what, 1:30 p.m. there? Yeah, I have no questions to answer, y'all. So this is office hours. Ask me anything. If you have no questions, we're going to sign off in 4.5 minutes. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to look at my emails. Remember, all questions are welcome. And if you have a question that you feel is a bit private or uncomfortable, you can always ask it anonymously with the deltacx.link/ask. Then I'm not going to yell your name out and say your name, and you don't have to have your name there, and that way you can ask something anonymously, maybe because of something that's going on at your job. So that's always available. You don't have to put your name on the deltacx.link/ask stuff. Okay, emails checked. We've got 3.5 minutes. If nobody has a question, I might just sign off because this is a very silly stream no one will want to see later. It's one person watching me have a breakfast shake. If you're into that. Hello, Malika. We have a question. Okay. Thank you for the question. Let me get that in the list of questions. Okay. What's your take on research repositories? So I think research repositories can be a good thing. It certainly helps to make what we do in our research available. Hi, Shivani. It helps make what we do available to others. I think that's the point of it, is making these things shareable in a way that other people want them shared. Some people like PowerPoint decks, some people like video clip montages, some people like reports. And if we have a research repository, then we have a central place where everybody on the team or in the company knows to go to see, have we researched this? What did we learn? Where are the opportunities and insights? What can we do now? Now, there's lots of tools available for them. If your company uses Jira for your engineering tickets, you probably have access to Confluence, which is another tool from Atlassian who makes Jira. Hashtag not sponsored, but you can always put this stuff into Confluence. Some people buy or subscribe to special research repository software like Dovetail. Hashtag not sponsored. So ultimately, it's up to your company as to which thing you choose for a repository. I mean, you can make a WordPress website as long as it's searchable. As long as you have something that is searchable and well organized, so put on your information architecture hat, then you have a repository where anybody can find, what did we study, who was it with, what were the goals, what did we learn, and then do we have any quantitative information, qualitative information, reports, video clip montages, etc. Malika says, would you share raw data in the repositories or just the insights? I think that would really depend on what kind of things my team is into. So if I think that there's something in the raw data that's helpful, I would include it. Would I include my entire affinity board? I don't know. That might be overwhelming for the average teammate. But it depends. If your research repository is also for other people on the UX team, they might want to see the whole affinity board. So I think there's a place for the raw data, but you just might want to label it as, this is an affinity diagram. What can you do with an affinity diagram? If you're on the UX team, lots of things. If you're not on the UX team, this probably doesn't interest you. So I would say the raw data is good to have there, or at least some of it, so that if there are other, I always say, imagine your future self and your future teams. So sometime in the future, someone might want to see what this research was and what was done and why certain decisions were made. So you are creating a library, an archive, so that people can refer to this, not just right now for this project, but possibly in the future as well. So I would say, think about your future self and your future teams, and what do you wish people in the future might want to find about this research. Sometimes I'm including suggestions we have, why we suggested against something, anything that can help somebody now or later. And I think you just have to categorize things by saying, here are the artifacts or data that's going to be more useful to people on the CX or UX team than those outside it. And here's some artifacts that are going to be useful to people across our teams. Here's our personas. Here's a task analysis. Here's the optimized task flow, or maybe you made a customer journey map or jobs to be done. Those can certainly be shared outside. So I would say raw data, yes, especially if you see this as a repository for your internal UX department and teams as well. And why wouldn't you? You might as well use it. So let me know if you have a follow-up question to that. That's a good one. We haven't gotten that one before, so thank you for that. And breakfast shake to you. It's warm here, so that is full of ice cubes and cool and delicious. Hashtag not sponsored. I made it myself. So, office hours, ask me anything. I'm waiting for someone to ask me anything. Let's see if any emails have come in. No, not from all y'all. So we'll start the countdown timer again, and we'll see if nobody has a question within 5 minutes. I'll sign off. But if people do have questions, I'm happy to take them. We normally stay for an hour, but the early office hours one is not very well attended quite yet. Thanks for the answer. Cheers to you with a coffee. Thank you. I put decaf coffee in my shake, so I am technically having coffee. Thank you. It's banana, yogurt, decaf coffee, water, spirulina. And I hope you're having a good coffee this morning, as you're probably in my time zone. Oh, is it nap time yet, everybody? Oh. The day is just starting. Plus, we've got another broadcast tonight. Don't forget, 6:30 p.m. office hours. Let's see, 6:30 p.m. office hours, and a show tomorrow. And of course, our reaction stream Friday. So full calendar. If you ever want to see what we're up to, just check deltacx.link/events, and you'll be able to see what live shows are planned for this channel. And of course, ask your question, send in something for Friday's reaction stream. If anybody's interested in coaching with me, there you go. These are all the URLs you should just jump on. Hey, it's Seth. Seth says, I didn't quite get the gist of yesterday's talk on enterprise UX. Could you maybe give us a quick overview of the differences with conventional UX? Yeah, so based on what Stephanie was saying, it sounded like, at least from her perspective, because she's not here to answer for that, that enterprise UX was a little bit more about doing projects that were internal to companies, where the user base is going to be your own enterprise, your internal users. We've got, hold on, there's a question coming in from LinkedIn. You will be next LinkedIn person. It's not telling me your name, but my system just says LinkedIn user, and so it just means we're probably a secondary connection. So Seth, back to you, and let's put your question up on the screen, which I can't do with LinkedIn questions. Sorry, everybody. So it sounds like enterprise UX is more about building and improving internal tools for internal teams and workers. So very often it's like old intranet stuff, that this is something that might be used enterprise-wide or for parts of the enterprise for internal business intelligence, knowledge, data analysis, strategies and decisions. So it sounds like Stephanie's working right now in, I think she said banking. So it sounds like these are some internal tools for people to use. So it's not that she's not using conventional UX. It sounds like she's using all the conventional UX that we would want to see her use, and the full user-centered design process. Always a good idea. But it also sounds like she, more than the average bear, she's running up against problems where people like really don't want something changed because they have so much muscle memory around these tasks that they're doing in their internal tools. And so if you add a click to something or you move something, you better have a damn good reason, because these people have gotten used to however it is, even if it's terrible. And so there's a lot of change management there as well. People are counting clicks. People are looking at how long the page is, and can you just keep making fonts smaller so I can see everything in one screen? So I would say that enterprise UX, at least the way Stephanie was describing it, is very much conventional UX, but it's just with a large internal audience. And so that means you don't have competition. You don't have a marketing department. You are just trying to make people's internal work better, which comes with its own pros and cons. I hope that helps. Our next question says LinkedIn user, so I'm sorry I don't know who this is from. And it says, do you have to be a technical person to do UX? It depends what you mean by technical. So I'm going to shoot that back to you for a question of what do you mean by technical? But I would say that since most UX work is the research and architecture and design of a digital product, something that will be used on a computer, on a smartphone, a smartwatch, a smart thermostat, a car screen, since UX is seen by many as these ultimate creations of digital products, I'm not sure how you could work in a digital space and not be at least somewhat technical. Now, if the question is, do you have to know how to code or do development? I always say no. I don't believe that we need to know how to write code to be good collaborators to developers, just like they don't need to know how to research and analyze research to be good collaborators with us. Oh, thank you. Seth says the LinkedIn person is Camellia. Hi, Camellia. So So technical, yes, we work in technology, so it's going to be important to know technology. I've met a few people who tried to get into UX and were either older or were from certain cultures where they really hadn't grown up with computers, and I think that was tough. Oh, we're getting a little follow-up, and Camellia says, knowing what developers know. Exactly. I feel stuck when I need to ask questions if the domain is too technical. Is there any trick to ask good questions in a field where you're not very confident? Okay, great. Thanks for adding more color to that. So first of all, if you knew how to code, that doesn't necessarily mean you end up with domain knowledge. So depending upon what your domain is, Denise says, good morning from Barcelona. Good morning, Denise. But maybe you can tell me, Camellia, what is your domain? Well, you don't have to tell me what company you're at, but where are you, what are you building for whom maybe, or what's this industry? Because it's definitely important to have domain and industry knowledge. So for example, if you are doing UX for cybersecurity, you're going to have to learn about cybersecurity. You can't not know about cybersecurity and get a UX job working in cybersecurity. But that still doesn't mean you have to know how to write code. You don't have to know how to make a SQL database. You don't have to know how to write JavaScript or any of these other things, React, Ruby on Rails. I don't believe that we need to know those things. Do you need domain knowledge? Absolutely. It's going to be hard to do a job in a certain domain or industry without acquiring more knowledge in that domain. And that's true for me too. Every time I get a new client, I've got to learn at least a bucket of stuff about the industry that they're in so that I can properly research the right things, advise the client, design the right things. But I never feel like I have to know what programmers know. And also the other part of your question is there any trick to ask good questions in a field where you're not very confident? When I hang out at developers conferences, I have no problem going up to some developers, hanging out and chatting and saying, hey, I work in UX. I'm not a developer, but I'm trying to better understand microservices. Can you guys tell me a little, or gals or whoever's there, can you all tell me more about microservices? What are they and when would we use them? Usually they are thrilled to pieces to talk about this stuff. I've never had someone walk away from me. I've never had someone go, I don't want to tell you that. I've never had someone go, hey, I get paid to answer that question. I've had agile coaches and scrum masters refuse to answer my questions and tell me they get paid to answer them. But I've never had regular everyday developers not want to help me understand their world a little bit better, especially when they see that the question is respectful. I'm not saying, teach me to do your job so I can do what you do. I'm saying, just help me understand your world a little bit better. Need to be the bridge between a development team and its users. The main product is a data analytical platform. Right, so again, you don't have to be a programmer, in my opinion, but you are going to have to understand data analysis, and you are going to have to understand the tasks and needs of the customers. What are the customers, what data do they have? What data are they trying to get? Why are they trying to analyze it? What do they do with that information? If someone on the team can be doing good observational research, watching these people doing their data analysis work and the things that happen before it and the things that happen after it, because it's not an isolated task, something happens before and after this. If you can be watching that either in your tool or competitors' tools or both, you will learn a lot more about what your customers' tasks are and what they need from you, and you can therefore architect something better for them. I think that type of approach would be a lot better than, hey, developers, can you explain to me what our customers are doing? The developers might be guessing too. They might just see, hey, build this thing for customers, and they build it. They may or may not know why, or if it's even the right thing to do. So I would say, you don't have to become a programmer, but you're definitely going to have to learn more things in your domain and get into this type of research, or at least partner with people who can do this type of research, because I think that's going to give you a lot more usable information than just asking programmers what they know. I hope that helps, Camellia. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. I'm going to grab Glenn's question from LinkedIn, which means I can't put it on the screen, but it goes a little like this. Okay, Okay, sorry, more emails coming in. Oh, let me check for other emails coming in. Don't forget, you can also ask anonymous questions through deltacx.link/ask. Oh, I'm getting this is so strange. I'm getting an email in from someone who's trying to pitch writing an article on my blog, which y'all know is spam. But it's funny because my system grabs their IP number and tells me where they're writing from, and they're writing from Uganda. So I can write my own blog, I promise. Okay, so next we've got Glenn. Hello, Glenn. The question says, what would you say is the most important weapon to have when job hunting in UX? Portfolio, networking, or both? Or I would say, or something else. So the interesting thing about that question is that even if I'm networking with people, if it turns into a discussion of possible jobs, they might still want to see the portfolio. So the networking only gets you so far. The networking doesn't hand you the job. The networking might open the door where you now have to submit your resume or CV or portfolio or something. So no matter what, with or without networking, you are going to need an updated resume, as we call it in America, CV, as the rest of the world seems to call it, and portfolio. They both have to be updated. They both have to be compelling. You can't really get away with not having these. You can't say, I'm sorry, I didn't bother making a CV, and they go, say what? Now, some people don't have a portfolio either because they're very new to UX or because all of their work has been too confidential to share in a portfolio. If you absolutely can't make a portfolio, then you can't. But if you have work that you can show because it was public or it was live or it was not confidential, then you absolutely want a portfolio. Most hiring managers, not all, but most hiring managers rely heavily on looking at the portfolio as a representation of what you can do, because you're showing case studies of what you've done previously. What was your process? How did you approach the project? What went right? What went wrong? What did you choose to do? What did you choose to not do? This is your chance to tell stories. And good morning, Ikening. I hope you're doing well, staying warm. So I would say no matter what, I would shoot for having a really compelling portfolio. To me, the portfolio and the resume or CV are speed dating. It's my chance to look at you and say, do I want to interview this person? Do I want to meet Glenn? Or does Glenn look like Glenn's not quite right for our company or not ready for this job? So you got to do that. And then as for networking is just hopefully a good way to get to know more people so that there are more possible open doors to jobs. That's really what networking is all about. Networking is really about how can people help each other? When you are looking for a job, very often you see networking as what can somebody else do for me? And it's very much of a taking relationship. But hopefully when you get further in your career, you will be in a position to give back. And it won't just be, I need networking because I need to take things from people. And I need everybody to help me. I understand that that's common for people early in their careers or in a bit of a desperate job switch. But don't forget, later in your career, I expect you to pay that forward, pay that back, and help other people, and not always see networking as what can everybody do for me? Because if we all go into it with what can everybody do for me, we're not going to help each other. We're going to wait for them to help me, and we're going to do nothing for that person. So keep looking for opportunities to do something for somebody else, even if you are new to the industry, but certainly later when you are, more in the thick of it. Delicious breakfast shake, not sponsored. Hashtag not sponsored. So this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. And I take questions until we run out of questions or until we hit an hour, whichever happens first. Glenn says, thanks, Debbie. Doors seem difficult to open at the moment, even with CV, portfolio, and resume. Have a great day. Yeah, thank you. You have a great day, too. And if you take a look at some of my recent posts on LinkedIn, you'll see that that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how right now is not a great time to get into UX. in many areas. Seems hot in South Africa, but does not, is in a bit of a transition period in, I would say, Western Europe, North America. The problem is we've had such a flood of people coming out of boot camps and online courses and self-studying and even some university degrees. And all of a sudden you have thousands and thousands of people looking for their first job in a market that hasn't created thousands and thousands of jobs. We haven't created the jobs to match the new demand. And the problem was that boot camps, especially boot camps, were using marketing tactics that said, whoa, UX is so hot, companies can't fill jobs. That was true in 2015, 2016. I was there for that. That was kind of true, though I wouldn't have said a boot camp was the answer. But now it's not true. But the problem is they're still saying that. So now there's way more people than jobs. And now we have this flood of people, which means people like Glenn are having a hard time finding a job. And it seems all out of balance and all unfair. So I tell people, unless UX is super crazy burning in your heart and running through your veins, it might be a career you might want to press pause on, because it is just too hard to get into right now, because thousands of people heard the boot camp promise or siren song of, you're going to make great money, you're going to have fun being creative, you're going to put sticky notes on walls, come into UX. And they don't understand it's a totally thankless, really difficult job that doesn't pay well until about 5 years in, and et cetera. Oh, Seth and Ikening saying hi to each other. Hey, he's calling you Connie. Am I supposed to call you Connie, or is that just for the in crowd? Paolo says, good day from Finland. Good day. Seth says, it's hot here, but not in a good way. That's mysterious. Good morning, Madalena. How's your world going? So the whole crowd's here. Oh, we've got a question from Denise. Let's copy and paste that into my list of questions, which ends up being the description on the YouTube video. That way people can see what was asked in what order, even though I do not usually take the time to go back and put timestamps on them. Sorry. Glenn says, I'm actually looking to relocate to foreign shores. I have many years of coding in UX and health and freelance. Saw your posts about the job status. Very interesting. Thanks. Well, good luck, Glenn. I hope you find a friendly foreign shore, and maybe one where you are a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Oh, Seth says UX is hot here, but not in a good way. Okay. Yikes. Well, let's see what we can do about that. Okay, so question from Denise. Love hearing my name spelled right. Did I say Denise wrong? Are you not Denise? Uh-oh. I'm doing this wrong. It's a secret code. Denise, are you pronounced Denise, or do I say something else? Well, anyway, the person who I think is pronounced Denise says, what do you think about niched UX? For example, medical UX. How do you think UX coming from a different industry can land in this type of niched industry? Madalena says +1. Denise says, no, you're right. I'm not being sarcastic. Okay, shoo, thanks. So yes, I've heard about medical UX and clinical UX and healthcare UX and things like that. And there are some niches there. So it sounds like some of the clinical and medical UX is typically for people with extensive medical healthcare domain knowledge, now shifting into UX. So for example, if you're following Dr. Giles Morrison, then you know that he was a medical doctor who left being a doctor and moved into UX. And of course, in working in UX related to healthcare and medicine and things like that, he has unbelievable domain knowledge because he is a proper medical doctor. So I think that that's an absolutely interesting niche to take somebody who comes from a certain domain and move them into this new domain, but of course they still have all of the knowledge of that domain. So I think that there are certainly possibilities for niches within UX, but I just tend to see them, and other people might disagree, but I just tend to see them as extensive domain knowledge. I'll give you an example. We have a small project we're working on at deltacx for some musicians who want to start their own online music school. This was a perfect project for me because I have a degree in music. So I'm going to have more domain knowledge in this area than the average bear. And so chances are, if random other person comes in to do a UX project related to an online music school, you could do a good job, but would it be the same as someone who happens to have done some music school or done music lessons or things like that? So I think that when we think about these niches, I think of them more as extensive domain knowledge. Like we were just talking with someone who asked a question earlier. Sorry, I got to roll back up. Camellia, who wanted to learn more about data analytics because that's the industry in which they're working. If they happened to have come from a data science or data analytics background, they would have already had that domain knowledge and it would have seemed very niche. So I think that a niche to me is a great opportunity to combine whatever was your past life or university degree or previous career with something you might do in UX now. So for example, people who might have come from working in some other area of finance might do better than the average bear in UX for fintech because they come to it with domain knowledge about finance. Excuse me, breakfast shake. So I hope that helps and I hope it makes sense. Denise, I think you're still here, so let me know if that makes sense. And I think that to me, the niche is really about having extensive domain knowledge so that you're coming into something not so cold and you are coming into it going, yep, I kind of know this world, or I very know this world. Any follow-up questions to that? Remember, you are allowed to ask follow-up questions to other people's questions. You don't have to only ask follow-up questions for yourself. So if anybody has a follow-up question to that, that was a good one. Let's talk more about that. It sounds like today is turning into a conversation about domain knowledge and industry specializations and how you get there. So throw the questions my way. We're here and it's free. No charge other than the value of your time. And thank you for sharing your time with me. Quick reminder, won't you please subscribe here on YouTube? I have a goal of 3,000 subscribers this year for absolutely no reason. Thank you for the Don Norman emoji. So please subscribe here on YouTube and usability test the bell. Empathize with the like button, give that a click. Remember, you can join our Slack universe. It's completely free, deltacx.link/join Slack. And we do have a tip jar, though it is optional. Everybody hold on to your money right now, but optional tip jar. It normally buys me cheese, but I think I've been eating too much cheese. I've put on a few kilos. So let's say for now it is paying for chickpeas. That might change later if I go back to keto. If I go back to keto, it'll be buying cheese. Denise says, yes, thanks. But in the light where I don't have any domain knowledge, I would probably have to catch up with all the knowledge. Right. That's the idea. So, and very often that's where our observational and interview research comes in. We're trying to learn more about what is going on here. And of course, other research we can do as well. So very often if I'm working in something, I've got to start researching that world to learn more about what's going on there. I did a talk for a company a couple of years ago who were in the oil and gas industry. I always hope they're finding new sustainable things. And they kind of didn't want anybody on the UX team or in their company who wasn't a qualified geologist. And I said, well, what about someone who wants to just start learning geology now, And they're like, no, we don't want to teach them geology. We want them to already know. So you have to be careful when you're looking at some of these jobs. Oops, I've just pressed the wrong button. When you're looking at some of these jobs, whether or not they expect you to already have this domain knowledge or whether they're going to train you or teach you or help you or something else. So yeah, if you don't have domain knowledge, you're going to have to start learning about stuff. You can't really work successfully in UX and not dive into the industry or domain that you are working in. Madalena says, chickpeas are tasty. Glenn says, what certification? Oh, okay. So we've got a new question from Glenn, but let's just finish up Denise's follow-up questions and then we'll jump over to Glenn. Denise says, so a doctor coming in UX would have an advantage versus UX with no domain knowledge. Yeah, if it's healthcare. If it's fintech, the doctor probably isn't going to have an advantage. But if it is healthcare, clinical UX, medical UX, patient-related UX, pharmaceutical-related UX, yes, somebody coming in with domain knowledge would probably have an advantage. Some hiring managers look specifically for that, and that is what I call the gate. The gate does not open if you are not a geologist. And they might say, I don't care what else you can do or where you've been. If you're not a geologist, we kind of don't want you. That's their right, and they can close the gate on whoever they want. So, yeah. So if you're looking to work in healthcare and things like that, there are many jobs where you can obtain just enough information to do a good job of it. But there are other jobs where probably having a medical background is going to be a real advantage. If you're in the healthcare space where you're working on a website to help people file their insurance claims related to medical care or some sort of medical claim, you might not need to have studied medicine or be a paramedic, but if you're working in some other areas, that would make sense. Camellia says, that's my situation too. I need to catch up with a new domain. I think it's a normal route when we decide to change our domain. Camellia, so true. Tony says, I'm starting my first product design role. Yay for Tony, everybody. I was so happy to hear this. With a company that has dedicated UX researchers. Oh, Tony's got a fresh question. I thought he was adding to this. Okay, Tony, your question will come after Glenn's question. And good to see you. Okay, so let's look at Glenn's question, which I can't put up because it's LinkedIn, but thank you for joining, Glenn. It says, what certification would you put at the top of the heap for UX, or do you not value certificates? I do not value certificates. I value the knowledge you have and how you apply it. I don't care if that came from a certificate. I don't care if it came from university, boot camp, a book. It doesn't matter to me how you learned, as long as you learned the right things and you're now doing them well. Kind of a little bit like my good old friend phases of proficiency. So a building block is I use Figma, but science and technique is I'm doing really good information architecture and interaction design because I understand those concepts and best practices and I apply them well. And so I don't care what certificate you have. I don't look for certificates at all. And I know that most certificates are obtained by a multiple choice question. Newsflash, you will never be asked a multiple choice question while working in UX. You will have to know concepts, foundational core ideas and skills, and you'll have to be able to do these things with proficiency. So I'm looking more at portfolio and personality than pieces of paper. I hope that helps. Madalena, I see your follow-up question, but I'm going to add it to the end so we can get to a couple of other questions first. No offense. But Glenn, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have a follow-up question, but the answer to your question is there are no boot camps or courses or certificates that I recommend at this time. And in general, I recommend against all of them as I am not sure they are good uses of time or money, especially if they're teaching you things that are fake UX like design thinking and design sprints. Do not want. All right, let's go back to Tony's question. Let's put Tony up on the screen. And Tony says, I'm starting my first product design role with a company that has dedicated UX researchers. Any tips to best work with these specialists? Well, that's great. That's a great sign that they do have dedicated researchers. Hopefully, we are waiting for their results because some companies hire researchers and then go design and build stuff anyway. So you want to make sure that the whole point of doing research is to be research informed. Typically, you are collaborating with these people to make sure that as they are planning research, that they have somewhere in mind, and usually they have this, but just double check, the research goals that are related to what you're supposed to be working on the design side. So if there's a certain problem you're trying to solve, or even a problem you're just trying to understand better, remember that's now their job. So I know you've dabbled in some research and that's cool, but now you've got to go to somebody else and you have to say, okay, for this project, I wish I knew this, or can we learn this, or can we find out what people's decision-making criteria are before they even hit our website? Or can you tell me how they do their tasks now? Where are, things like that. So remember, it's going to be their job to do the research and usually to interpret the research, which means you are just going to get the outcomes of this, which means you want to work with them to make sure that as they are researching, whatever you wanted to know is on their list to find out. It may already be, or they may have missed something because we're all human. So I would say work with them on that, and then work with that. Sometimes you're also partnering with researchers to do your usability testing or card sorting or tree testing. Sometimes a company has the division of labor really, really clear, where people who are considered designers or product designers just don't research or test. And that's okay, as long as you have someone who does and they have time for you. If you need something researched or tested and they go, I'm busy with something, I'll do that in 3 weeks. Now we're not agile. Now we're not efficient. Now someone's going to be mad at us, and someone's now going to skip research and say, well, just forget it. Let's just put it out there and see what happens. So we have to make sure that we have enough researchers to keep things as agile and efficient as possible, or we're going to be accused of not being agile. So make sure that you're working with researchers on what you need and when you need it. If there aren't enough researchers to go around, make sure you're raising that up to management as a risk. It is a risk that if we don't get more good researchers in here, that engineers are just going to build stuff, that designers are just going to guess at stuff without having the business intelligence that comes from research. Don't forget to use business words like that. Don't say empathy and don't say delight. Empathy and delight never made us money. Business intelligence, risk mitigation, and building what customers needed made us money. So don't forget that. Oh, I want to just click something before I press the wrong button. So hopefully that helps. Tony, if you're still here, you're welcome to ask a follow-up question. Let's take a look at Madalena's question. We still have 15 minutes. Send in your questions. They can also come anonymously, deltacx.link/ask. Madalena says, what's your view on UX in mental health? I see a gap in offering people such a solution, and the nuances are different, as opposed to just another medical appointment service, for example. Yeah, so this is probably a case where it would be really good if people working on that UX team do have backgrounds in mental health and dealing with mental health, whether they happen to have psychology backgrounds or counseling backgrounds or social work backgrounds. I can see where coming into that job with that domain knowledge would really help that person probably make some better decisions or know the right way to research this in a sensitive and caring way and appropriate. So I think there are definitely more opportunities in the mental health space. I don't think that's been gone into as much as we could. And of course, many people are predicting a rise in mental health issues and complexities because of the pandemic, from survivor's guilt to loneliness and depression. So I think it is an area we do need to go into more. But I also believe that once we're talking about things related to physical health, mental health, I probably, if I were a hiring manager, hypothetically, I'd probably want to bring in people with domain knowledge, because I'm great at e-commerce and SaaS systems. Sure, I can make you a I can make a mental health whatever, but there's probably someone out there who's better than I am because they've extensively studied mental health, and they're going to just get it more naturally and more quickly than I am. And I would have to transition into some of that domain knowledge. So I think that's how I would see that. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. Urvi has a question that's a follow-up to Tony's question. And it says, let's put it up. Oh, there we go. Yes. Hello, Urvi. Any tips for working with an IT company that's got no UX practice at all? Yeah, I've got hours of tips for that, so we're probably not going to have time to go into that. As usual, I'm going to point you towards two of my other videos on the YouTube channel, though together they're about 4.5 hours long. So think of this as a one-day workshop you're attending for free. If you go into the live stream podcasts playlist, check out episode 115 and 116. You can also check out in the playlist that's called Conference Sessions. This one's already a little bit outdated, but it's still pretty good. It's called Improving Agility by Using Customers' Definitions of Quality and Done. It runs about an hour, and it's a talk I do at engineering conferences to help them understand why they do want UX people and processes to be part of the universe. That one doesn't go as deeply as I could into some of the nuances of how I think UX and engineers and Agile can work better together, but I do open up those topics. So I would say if you are working in such a place and you are the first UX person or you're trying to become it, maybe see if you can have a company watch party with my Improving Agility talk, because I talk about how working with UX specialists and bringing them in, not trying to teach each other to do UX, but bringing in UX specialists is really going to help with business intelligence and risk mitigation, because Agile is so incredibly risky. People don't stop and think about it, I'm finding, but it's so incredibly risky to care more about how fast we go than about what we're doing. And I find that a lot of engineers and people in the Agile and Scrum world tend, not everybody, but tend to define quality as, well, the code seems good. Code doesn't seem buggy or too buggy. And hey, we're done. We did what we wanted to do. So yeah, it's done. Get it out there. But nobody takes a look at quality and done from the customer's perspective. Did you build what is going to be 5-star out of 5 quality for the customer? Or did you guess at what they want and build something crappy? Did you guess at what they want and put it out as an MVP and out some tiny sliver of what somebody might want? So there's so much bizarre guessing in Agile. While Agile's claiming to want customer satisfaction and all these other things, these all got thrown out the window in the name of efficiency and speed and velocity. So I think companies have a lot to learn about bringing UX in as our insurance policy against building the wrong thing, because what is more expensive for a company internally and externally than having built the wrong thing? That's weeks of wasted work for multiple people. It's burning customer trust, and yet companies do it all the time. I don't know why. It doesn't seem agile or lean to me at all. Madalena says no, and the current platforms that are live are hit and miss. I was asking because I do have extensive exposure to mental health as a patient, not as a therapist. Yeah, I would probably say, while many of us have mental health issues, either lifelong or that have come and gone, it may or may not qualify us to take the perspective of the practitioner, of the therapist, of the psychiatrist, of the social worker. I would probably want to make sure that a mental health tool brings those people in, because I think even if we've been a patient, we run the risk that we accidentally focus on ourselves, that we accidentally focus on, well, when that happened to me, I needed, or when that happened to me, I felt, and I go, oh, hold on. We're supposed to be low ego action heroes. We want to make sure that we're not accidentally making this the Debbie story or what Debbie wanted. So be careful there. Glenn's jumped over to YouTube. Thanks, Glenn. Definitely new opportunities in mental health and remote working related illness in the workplace. Remote and hybrid work models will lead to new issues and opportunities. Very true. Urvi says, thanks, noted. It does help a lot that I have a degree in software engineering. Yes, it will. And now take a look at the Improving Agility talk in the Conference Sessions playlist here on the YouTube channel. Give that a watch. Even though I've already rewritten some of the slides, it's still pretty good. I think it's episode 109. Might be worth having the whole company watch. And then I'm always available to answer questions. I do come into companies and do Q&As. So if the team wants to watch that and then bring me in for a Q&A, I don't charge for that. So let me know if I can help. Hey, it's Anita. Yay. Okay, so we've got a question from Anita, super friend of the show. let's copy and paste Anita's question. Anita says, hi, Debbie. If you were a design manager and your specialty is content design and information architecture, what kind of question would impress you from a junior designer you're interviewing? Asking for a friend. Okay. So I guess the first question is, I probably wouldn't ask someone if I'm interviewing someone and if I'm interviewing Anita's friend and I'm asking someone, if your job isn't content design and information architecture, I'm not going to ask you about that. I'm going to ask you how you can work best with me, how we're going to work together. If your job is expected to have some content design and information architecture, we are doing content design on July 26th, though I know that doesn't help you today. I would think that, so what would impress me? What usually impresses me is knowledge and ability and skill. So if you know something about content design, if you've read a book, if you've started doing some of it, if you had a good teacher or mentor somewhere who helped you with content design, you could mention that it's something you've started getting into. You don't want to make it sound like you know more than they do, but hey, I've started getting into that too. If it's information architecture, what can you tell people about information architecture that would make them go, okay, yeah, sounds like she knows what she's doing, or she's starting to know what she's doing if this is a junior job. So Anita says, it doesn't help my friend. Which thing that I said? Remember, don't use pronouns. I'm seeing things 40 seconds after you write them. Which thing doesn't help your friend? Right. The 26th. So, yeah, so if you wanted to try to impress someone with information architecture, then the question is, what have you done in information architecture that someone could be impressed by? Have you read the famous O'Reilly Polar Bear book on information architecture? How do you use information architecture in any of your interaction design? Right now, it's very hard to disconnect information architecture from interaction design, but you can show me you know what you're doing by telling me how you're using principles of information architecture in your interaction design. So I am not sure what I would ask you. Maybe I would ask you that. Maybe I would ask you, are you using principles of information architecture in your interaction design? If I'm an information architecture person and I'm interviewing you for a design job. Now, what kind of question could you ask me that would be impressive? I don't know. I'm not usually impressed by other people's questions, other than all y'all during this show. But I'm saying in the form of an interview, what question could you ask me that I would be impressed by? I don't know. I don't know if I'd be impressed by this, but maybe a fair question is, how can you tell the company values content design and information architecture? Now, sometimes there's a bad answer to that because they don't. So you have to be careful on that one. That could be a question that could make you not want to work there. It could be a question that would make them not want to work there. But it is a question you could ask. But I'm not sure I would ask that because that might have a sad answer. Like, oh, yeah, not really. I don't know. Can anybody in the chat room think of a question you could ask if you are interviewing for junior designer and you're going to be speaking with someone at the company who's a content designer and information architect? What question might you expect from them? And is there a good question you can ask them? Glenn's talking about Iceland moving to a 4-day work week. I didn't check that, but I want to make sure it's not a 410, as we call it in America, where you're still working 40 hours a week, and now you're just working 4 ass-breaking, long, stressful days, and then you got Friday off. I think if we really want to talk 4-day work week, you have to work 4 8-hour days, but that's just me. You can work 410s if you want, but yikes. Anita says, thank you, Debbie. Good start. The company does value content, so you could ask that. Yeah. That's something you could ask. Again, I'm not easily impressed. But ultimately, to me, I think if you want to make a good impression in an interview, you just have to be yourself, which sounds so cheesy, but come across as the smart, thoughtful, critical thinking person that you are. And hopefully that's who the company wants. If the company wants a non-critical thinking robot, you probably don't want to work there anyway. But if they want you to be smart and warm and interesting and critical thinking, then, see what you can come up with there. So good luck to Anita's friend. Any other thoughts or questions? We're down to our last few minutes. Did I miss a question through email? No, I did not miss. Oh, I did. Rosa, hold on. We've got a question coming in from Rosa, and this will probably be the last one. Okay. Hello, Rosa. Let's get your question in here, and then that will probably have to be the last for today. We're just about out of time, but I'll be back here at 6:30 p.m. Italy time today doing the second version of this for people in other time zones. Glenn says, I think shorter hours for the same pay and environmental benefits. That would be good. All right, so let's see. Rosa asks, I've only recently come across your material and I found it fascinating to unlearn a lot of mainstream celebratory UX chest thumping. Well, thank you. That sounds beautiful. That's very nice of you to say. And Rosa says, thank you. Well, you're welcome. Now the question. Thoughts on entering UX writing at the moment? Do you think this is similar to the difficulty of getting into UX in general? Thanks again. And thanks to Anita. UX writing is not my specialty, so I can't completely speak to it. Come back on July 26th, where we have 2 content designers, writers, content strategists joining us to talk about their industry. I would say UX writing seems to be heating up a little bit. I think there's still a lot of confusion between UX writing and like marketing writing. But I am seeing more jobs, I think, that are probably more content strategist or content design where writing is a part of that. So I would say if you can kind of look at that clump of things as a specialty, and as you can see from Anita's question, Anita's friend will be interviewing with someone who is a content designer and information architect. So I think that for stronger UX writing, you want to learn more content strategy, content design, and information architecture, and writing and editing. To me, it seems like a bucket of skills that all go together very strongly. But we'll ask next week when we have our expert guests to tell us about that. So yeah, I hope that helps, Rosa. Thank you for your question, and good luck with whatever you're doing. And sorry about all the chest thumping. I'm not too sure who's doing that, but it sounds bad. So since we're just about out of time, I will just remind everybody to, let's press this button. Don't forget, you can check all the live events on this channel at deltacx.link/events. That will give you a cheesy Google Calendar with all the things that are coming up if you want to join us live. If you can't join us live, don't worry about it. Every show is archived on YouTube in its appropriate playlist. So all of the things marked as podcasts will be in the podcasts playlist. All the office hours will be in the office hours playlist. All the micro lessons will be in the micro lessons playlist. So you can always find everything later. And the YouTube channel is ad-free. I'm not here to monetize y'all. That is not what I'm doing. And of course, the best thing that you can do is let people know about the channel. Won't you please tell people about it? And because I'm not monetizing it, it's totally free to them. And I'm here to answer their questions and give them the no bullshit version of things. So please let people know about the Delta CX YouTube channel. Glenn says, is there a link to the breakfast smoothie recipe? No, I made it up. It is a banana, some non-fat yogurt, some water, some decaf coffee crystals, which dissolved, and a shake of spirulina, and then some ice, because where I am, it's warm. So that is my breakfast smoothie. I cannot guarantee any particular nutritional or mental health outcome, but I know that I enjoy it. So there you go. But I'm also a decaf coffee person. So there you go. So thanks to everybody for joining. It was a little bit of a slow start as always, but then it picked up. I'll be back here in 7.5 hours doing this again. So if you have more questions, send them into deltacx.link/ask. Mark them as being for the 6:30 p.m. version, and I will answer them later today my time. If you can't make the broadcast, I will answer them anyway. You don't have to be here for your questions to be answered, and then you can just check the archive for your question being answered. So with that, I am going to play us out of here and go back to work. So thanks for joining, everybody. Be well, wear 27 masks, stay inside, and see you all soon. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are